The reason why investors love Tesla is that they're disrupting multiple massive industries at the same time. Today, we'll share recent news from competitors as they try to either copy Tesla or hold off being disrupted. First, we have Chinese automaker Huawei, who many just a few months ago believed was a leader in autonomous driving. Their director of intelligent driving, Jia Fei, was quoted as saying that copying someone's homework isn't shameful. Copying it poorly is. This is an open admission. Huawei needs to follow Tesla's path. Second, we have an executive shakeup at Uber. Uber then also tapped Nikesh Arora to its board, a strategic move to get insider perspective. Arora is a former Google executive during Waymo's early years. They clearly are seeing pressure from Tesla. Third, we have a major news story from Amazon, who's apparently testing humanoid robots that deliver packages. Amazon is building a humanoid park, an indoor obstacle course to test many types of robots. We've got Larry Goldberg joining us. Larry's a multi-entrepreneur. Appreciate you, Larry.
Great to be here, Herbert.
So we've been hearing stories, right, for months. Huawei is so far ahead of Tesla's full self-driving. Don't you know, all these Chinese automakers, they're so, theirs is so much better. Tesla releases FSD in China. Very clear at that point. They've done head-to-head tests. Tesla's far ahead. Huawei, this is the guy in charge of the program, is saying we need to copy Tesla. So this is why this is interesting, because this is a conference that he attended, Jia Fei, director of Huawei's Intelligent Vehicle Solution Industry Development. He was at this conference last month in May, and he said this at Huawei, copying someone's homework isn't shameful. Copying it poorly is. This is Huawei director's acknowledgement of FSD's commanding position, illustrates the overall status of other systems in China, as Huawei's ADS used to be viewed as a top dog intelligent driving sector before FSD was rolled out in China. So you and I knew this all along, that they needed to switch to neural nets from code. They need to get supercomputers, and they need to switch from LiDAR to, or at least not rely on LiDAR, but really just the vision cameras. What's your thinking about what you heard here?
Yeah, so, China's approach has been very much the Waymo approach, heavily coded, relying on multiple sensors, but more importantly, relying on very, very accurate maps. That's a solution that will definitely get you to autonomy. We've seen that with Waymo. We see that with other vendors. But it's a very brittle autonomy. It's an autonomy within a very limited scope. It's an autonomy that is very dependent upon the roads staying very, very standard and not changing very often. And it's a very heavily expensed business to try and manufacture cars like that, because the cars that are manufactured for autonomy really are clearly not suitable for daily drivers. The suite is just too expensive, and the amount of onboard compute required is very, very expensive. So it's a kind of a dead end. And, all of the Waymo fans just don't really recognize it or acknowledge it yet. Even Waymo are beginning to recognize it and acknowledgement. And there's a very heavy activity, I am certain, and I see all the breadcrumbs at Waymo to adjust their thinking or to adjust their approach. So Chinese vendors are going to have to adjust their approach as well. And that's the broad background to the statement that the guy from Huawei is making, that they're going to have to adjust their approach. They're going to have to, rethink it and redo it. And boy, the Chinese can rethink and redo at, warp speed. So we can expect all of these vendors to rethink. We can expect Chinese AI vendors to join with them. We can expect to see a change in their approach. And they're going to have to collect, a huge amount of mileage in order to feed the beast. So it's a race, and it's starting now, but they are far behind at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you talked about the data, because that's the thing, right? So first of all, we've been saying this for a while. we're watching these executives of these car companies realize we need to get to neural net, and we need to get into, not be solely dependent on LiDAR, have more vision cameras and focus on that, just like Tesla's approach. Now, which means they need to buy supercomputers and they need to get the data, which means that they need to have more of their cars. One of the disadvantages many of these Chinese car companies have is they actually don't have as many cars that are equipped that are capturing the data. Do you think that that's the case, or do you think that no, they can get that data they need?
I'm pretty certain that's the case. It's not so much that they don't have cars with the ability to collect the data. The problem is they don't have the infrastructure to download that data and to process it. I strongly doubt that they've captured all the data that they've already got. And it's not an issue necessarily of them getting the supercomputers. I mean, Baidu certainly has, and several vendors have very large compute capacity. We've seen that by the evidence of the strong competition that Chinese LLMs are developing. So we can expect very rapid China-style progress in that regard. The real issue is that China is not going to be a very large market for autonomy in rideshare, because the cost of drivers in China, are cents in the dollar compared to that in the Western world. So a Chinese driver adds a couple of cents a mile. A US driver adds, dollars a mile. Well, in the range of $1 a mile. So you have a very different incentive structure to adopt large-scale autonomy. I think the market for autonomy in China is in the sale of the car. So it's a different business model. It's a completely different approach. I think Tesla's Cybercab will have a lot of opportunity in China, not so much for rideshare vendors, but for actual customers. So, because it'll be a great town car for people who live in these large cities. I may be wrong, because I'm not a Chinese expert by any manner of means. But I don't think that there's going to be a rideshare race in China. I think the rideshare race is in the developed countries of the West, rather than the developing countries. And China, in terms of its road uses, or actually its cost of labor, is still a developing country.
Very good points. Love that. Thank you so much, Larry. Let's move on to the next story here. What is Uber doing? And you can see that Uber is making moves. They had an executive shakeup. Uber taps this guy, Nikesh Arora, for its board strategic move to get insider perspective. He's a former top Google executive during Waymo's early years. And so this is them bringing insider knowledge as they navigate a robotaxi partnership amid rising pressure from Tesla. This guy is CEO of Palo Alto Networks. Yeah. And then they also had this guy, Andrew McDonald, head of mobility, was promoted to president and chief operating officer. And then the head of delivery, he departed after 13 years. So they're making some moves. But this hiring of, or bringing on board this Nikesh Arora to the board, is it a little too late? Is it a desperate move? What do you think they're doing?
Yeah, I think Nikesh Arora is a very powerful senior executive. I think it has almost nothing to do with the Waymo or the rideshare, the autonomy business. Almost nothing. The fact that he was an exec at Google during the early days of Waymo is really also a non-issue, because at that point, Waymo was hardly on the horizon of any Google exec. You either had to be in Waymo, or you had to be, on the investment board of Alphabet to be interested. I mean, it was another bet. It was in the other bets category, and so I'm not sure Nikesh Arora had anything to do with it. And even if he did, those early days were so removed from where Waymo is today that I think, CNBC is reading far too much into it. Now, Waymo is definitely thinking seriously about autonomy. They are absolutely based on autonomy, and they were the first movers in the business. I think Waymo is thinking on three levels that are very serious in terms of Tesla entering this competition. The first is technology. There's no doubt Waymo's technology is at a dead end. It has to come to an end. Waymo have already worked on end-to-end neural networks. They have actually implemented them. They're testing them. They're going to have to utilize them with pure vision. Otherwise, they will never be able to match the cost of pure vision solutions like Tesla or Wave. So that is, I think, from Waymo's perspective, the first issue that they face. Their cost of rollout, their rate of rollout, their cost of operation, the elasticity of their operation all depend upon moving to vision only. And they can do it. They have the resources. They have the compute behind them. There's nobody with more compute on Earth than Google. And they have, the resources as well. So I have little doubt that they will move in that direction.
You said there's three things. Technology was first.
So technology was the big issue. The second issue is, operationally, in order for them to expand with their existing operation, they're going to have to manufacture cars at a much higher rate than they're able to at the moment. The factory that they've established, they say they can produce 2,000 cars a year. That's not going to compete in the coming years. If Elon's vision is correct, and I think it is, there are going to be hundreds of thousands required. And so people are saying, Waymo are going to win, Waymo are going to win. How are they going to win with 2,000 cars? Or how are they going to win with cars that cost $80,000 or even $60,000? How are they going to do that? When a Model 3 costs Tesla about $32,000, and a robotaxi, a cybercab, is going to cost them about $16,000 to $18,000. How are they going to compete? That's the second issue. The third issue is infrastructure. Tesla has 600 locations in the United States. 250 of them are service locations with a large amount of space. Tesla have a second to none charging infrastructure, and extending that infrastructure for robocabs, particularly behind the wall of these service centers, which they already have integrated charging structure. It is very difficult to see how Waymo scales, even economically, even if they can do it fast enough, which I presume they can, but economically, I don't think so. So on all these three counts, they're going to have a hard time competing once Tesla gets underway. The real issue is how quickly Tesla can get there, how quickly they can prove this out, and then once they have that, and the sooner they have that, the more competitive they'll be. And finally, the idea of Waymo having to work through a third party like Uber, or Uber having to use a third party like Waymo, does not sound like a convincing argument for a competitor to what is coming from Tesla.
Beautiful. Larry, I appreciate this. I know you're doing a research on this, and I can start seeing the research coming out here. One of the first things you said was Waymo technology. I think we did a show 6 months ago where it was revealed that Waymo has been doing neural nets, vision only. They've already tested it, like you said. They're working on it. So your first statement that I think you said that you're, no doubt in your mind, Uber or Waymo is going to switch over. And I agree with you.
No doubt at all.
They have to.
No doubt at all. The question is, when will they give up this religious affiliation to these multi-sensor monsters they built? And that's the question, because right now, I've seen this before in technology. I've seen it over and over again. People develop these religious beliefs, and I can't even tell you the number of stories I can, that I've experienced over the years of people hanging on to these religious beliefs and then becoming, redundant. And I always use the example, of the whole, DVD rental situation and how that was turned upside down, because it is like, once you have a business model, once you have a concept in mind, it's extremely difficult to move from that concept, to divorce yourself from where you came. So there you go. I mean, maybe one day somebody will discover a better solution than Tesla's vision solution. But until then, people who are married to these sensor suites and these massive computes, they're going to have to reform themselves. And, this third-party company, or this party who provides third-party software, Wave, they've already bypassed their predecessors by far in terms of pure software. So we'll see. Yep. Mobileye is a very distant competitor, and billions of Intel's money went into that.
Yeah. So great point. So here we have Huawei, and then we know Waymo's testing vision only and neural nets. So it's almost a guarantee at this point that is the better solution, and they're heading that direction. So the other story here is Amazon testing humanoid robots. No doubt, every single Mag 7 is going to get into humanoid robots. It is a go. And this is interesting. Just another example of Tesla seems to be always ahead. So Amazon prepares to test humanoid robots for delivering packages. This came from a story from The Information. This is not the actual robot, by the way. It's a fake robot. We don't know which robot it's going to be. But they said that, Amazon's completing construction of a humanoid park, an indoor obstacle course, where it will soon test such robots in California. It plans to use hardware from other firms in its tests for now. So this is the article. Could eventually take the jobs of delivery workers. It's going to be used in the Rivian vans that they've, the electric vehicle vans. I think we talked about that. So Amazon's focusing on the software. So they're developing AI software that would power such robots, the person said, and plans to use hardware from other firms in its tests. The initial obstacle course is roughly the size of a coffee shop. The plan mirrors the way self-driving developers develop their vehicles by first testing them in closed courses before expanding the public street testing about a decade ago. Hitch a ride in the back of an Amazon electric Rivian van, spring out to deliver packages. Amazon currently has 20,000 Rivians to get around, and they have humanoid delivery workers. So maybe in the future that will be it. So they're testing it. Makes sense that they'll be testing this. Is it too early, do you think, Larry, for them to do this? They also have an investment in Zoox, which is a self-driving, pub for ride-hailing company. But I think they will want to do something that's really focused on not just human delivery, but package delivery as well.
Yeah, well, I'm of the opinion that one of Tesla's biggest markets is, in fact, the delivery market, with both its robotaxis and its humanoid robot. Mm-hmm. It probably leads the world today in terms of embodied AI. And I think it could get to this solution faster. But nobody has the market or the captive market for this kind of delivery that can compete with Amazon, with the possible exception of Walmart. But even Walmart's deliveries don't begin to rival Tesla's. Now, of course, you've got UPS and some of the other delivery services, the U.S. Post Office, that could do very well with a combination automated car, self-driving car and plus a robot, because you do need a robot to put the mail in the mailbox. I mean, mail is just so redundant today that it's funny, but the U.S. Post Office will go on delivering mail for the next 50 years,
Yeah.
even if they're just delivering,
Junk.
self-generated pieces of paper. But anyway, that's a separate subject. But clearly, the ride-hail business has become as much a delivery service for small packages and food as it has become a ride-hailing business. But the ride-hailing business and the package delivery service, or the ride-hailing service and the food delivery service, is still a relatively small business. People don't realize the total market. The total market today for rideshare is under 100 billion a year. It's maybe Uber's doing 40-something billion, maybe. And they're talking about it becoming $1 trillion company. It's very hard to see it becoming $1 trillion company unless there's a very big expansion of the market. And the only way it's going to be a very big expansion of the market is if it becomes, a third of the cost, a third of the price that they're charging right now. Because right now, at the price that they're charging, the market is constrained. They're going to have to drop the cost, which is currently running, they say, at about $2 a mile. They're going to have to drop that to at least $1 a mile and maybe even less. To do that is going to be tough unless you happen to be a Tesla. And by the way, Tesla still doesn't have a full range of product for delivery of, say, parcels, but that may be coming with Robovan. Anyway, the point is, it's an extremely interesting moment we're in, and we definitely can move into delivery. Amazon clearly has, huge potential in that field, but they'll need the Optimus, or sorry, they'll need yes, there you go. They'll need both components, and of course, what you're showing is a very poor representation of what the components may be.
Yeah, that's a Digit.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is all faked out, of course. We're just watching, how Digit can actually deliver products.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful video, right? Because you can actually see how that could work. So yeah, you're saying that, so that's interesting. The market size, it isn't clear how many years Amazon says it'll take for such a robot to handle these duties. It'll test a variety of human robots, including one from Unitree, the Chinese-based one, because it's low cost, 16,000. Plans to try others. By using a variety of robot forms, they could be used to train new humanoids, right? So they're really just agnostic at this time. It sounds like, eventually they'll do field trips, walk in real streets, foundation models, and LLMs. Basically there. In 2023, Amazon started testing Agility's Digit, which is what you just saw there. The legs with backward knees. They've been testing it in the warehouses. Not sure if it's still happening today, if that continued or not, but they certainly were partnering with them to check it out. And that's what you saw there. Yeah. So 6 years ago, Agility, which was still owned by Ford, tested Digit to deliver packages to customers' homes, and then they were partnering already then. That's what I showed you there. They did invest $150 million into Agility. So Amazon clearly needs to get in. So first of all, Amazon is one of the largest, probably if not the largest company with the most robots, industrial robots with wheels. They need to test out humanoids. They partnered. But it's interesting where they're going to decide if they're just a e-commerce company, they're a delivery company, food delivery, maybe people delivery. So they invested in Zoox, right?
But they also built robots. I mean, they tried to buy Roomba. They were stopped from buying Roomba, which is a real tragedy for Roomba, and tragedy for Roomba's shareholders. What a terrible court ruling that was. But there you go. I mean, they should develop their own robot, and they probably will. I have very little doubt that in the end, Amazon will build its own robots.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing those 3 stories with us. First time I think you heard it here, where Larry is predicting that Uber is going, or Waymo is going to go and switch to vision-only neural nets. And that'll be interesting when that happens, Larry. You called it here first. Appreciate that. Follow Larry. Talk to you soon. Bye all. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.